Well, hello everyone. My name's Mark Sibbald, and I'm here to talk about fleet financing from an Australian point of view. You can see the question on the screen. That's what I'm here to answer, and I'm going to take a purely Australian view of fleet financing, subscription services, and novated leases. So just a quick bit about me. I'm a Director of Fleet at IPWEA, which is the Institute of Public Works and Engineers. What we do there is we train people how to be fleet managers. We have an education program, and we're Australian and New Zealand based, but we do have a global focus, and we have a lot of students from around the world attending our course. And I'm also the founder of the Fleet News Group, which I started over a decade ago now. So let's take a quick look at Australia. This is a map which you're all familiar with, but what many of you may not be familiar with is all the different states and territories. We have 6 states, we have 2 territories, and that means 8 sets of regulation. Now, there's been a lot of work to harmonise the regulation across the different states over the years, and it is pretty good now in regards to heavy vehicle safety, workplace safety, and a lot of other things that impact fleet managers. But what it does mean, if you're running a national fleet, or even if you're running a global fleet, when you come to Australia, you need to deal with each one of the different agencies. So when you need to register a vehicle, it's a different agency in New South Wales compared to Victoria. If you have a fine system and you're trying to monitor driver infringements, it's a different agency again. So it does present its own unique challenges. Even though we are one country, we're a federated model, and there's lots of different states and territories with 8 sets of different regulations. And this is all for a population of 26 million people. So in the scheme of things, not a big population for this many states and territories. But, you know, we certainly love it here in Australia. The other thing, stat just to share with you, is we've estimated we've got about 2.5 million fleet vehicles. Unfortunately, in Australia, we don't have very good record keeping, is one way to describe it. There's no central agency or authority that can produce statistics telling us how many true fleet vehicles we have in Australia. So this number comes from a research agency that's been doing some estimates over several years, and they estimate there's about 2.5 million fleet vehicles in Australia. And the definition of fleet does vary widely. So now let's get into some look at the financing. So traditionally, this is how the market's been split amongst fleets. I've been in the industry since the mid-90s, and I've been conducting some research during this time. And the very first research study I conducted back in early 2000s, I was quite surprised to find that the fleets, 50% of them used a fleet leasing company or a fleet management organisation, as we call them here in Australia, and I think you use a similar term globally, and the other 50% were using a non-leasing company. So they were either doing it themselves, they might have used a bank for finance or a different financial institution, but they're essentially managing the fleet themselves. The companies using the fleet leasing company, they would have a finance lease. Operating lease has traditionally been the main product, but also fleet management, where the leasing company takes over the management of the assets, but they don't actually take over the risk or the finance of the assets. So they'll perform all the transactional based services. And the reason why customers do that is because it lets them outsource some of those mundane processes, and the leasing companies can use scale to bring the costs down. The non-leasing companies are generally self-managed. They'll have workshops, they'll do their own work, and they generally have a diverse range of assets. They'll have plant, equipment, they'll have cars, and they'll have trucks as well. So there's a bit more expertise required, and a bit more diversity and I suppose higher level of competencies generally. And then there's novated leasing. Novated leasing is a little quirk of our tax system in Australia, and it's also called salary packaging, which is available in some markets around the world as well. But just recently with electric vehicles, the federal government in Australia has implemented a policy that has seen the popularity of novated leasing increase, only for electric vehicles and plug-in hybrids. So while the market was considered quite small, we estimate there's 300,000 cars a year purchased under a novated lease arrangement. That's out of a market of a million odd cars. So generally retail cars are recorded, novated leasing cars are recorded as retail cars generally, so it is quite hard to measure. But what's really interesting, and I suppose this is the main part of the talk, is the emerging finance trends. So the question was, can you expect to have different finance arrangements with your, or more flexible funding with your fleet in the future? And the answer is definitely yes, if you're willing to give it a go, if you're willing to actually try new ways. So what I'm seeing in the market here in Australia is we're seeing a bit of divergence. So we've got car subscription coming online, and organisations like Carly is one of the big ones. We have organisations like Loopit who are providing subscription software, and dealerships are getting into the car subscription business as well. Then we have energy retailers who are seeing the opportunity with electric vehicles. So they're offering car subscription services as part of their energy retailing offer as well. And then we have these new style leasing companies. So these are companies that are adopting the technology that's available in the market and being more customer centric, but getting rid of those old legacy systems, getting rid of those old ways that are dominated by a fully maintained operating lease. And they're allowed to be more flexible. They're allowed to be more nimble, and they're certainly offering a whole new range of products to the market. And that is actually taking a bit of a share of the leasing company. And some of the non-leasing company fleets are actually looking at these two options as well, because they provide a lot of flexibility. So that's pretty much it. That's my quick 7-minute talk. I hope you've really enjoyed it. Once again, my name's Mark Sibbald. I'm from Australia, and hopefully you've enjoyed the 7 minutes on this topic.